Afternoon, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about when is the best time to upgrade or buy a new camera kit and how I find the best deals online. Let's go. I know we all want the best things and we want the latest tech that's on the market, but sometimes it's just not needed or it's just out of our price range. So how do we decide what equipment we need and what equipment we want to get and what equipment we're going to invest in next? Personally, I have a 3-2-1 rule for buying new equipment. Before I explain the rule to you, I just want to make the point that I try not to spend too much on my camera equipment, and anything that I do purchase, I look at as an investment. The return on that investment either needs to be a level up of my overall production value, which in turn means I can charge more, it means I can bring in more money, or it needs to be something that actually brings me joy and enjoyment to you. As an example of that, I purchased my gimbal last year, and that was purely to level up my video work. Purchasing the gimbal enabled me to get better and smoother shots and overall level up my production quality, which means in turn I could charge more money, and I actually made my money back on the purchase of the gimbal because I got more video work because my video work improved. On the flip side, over the last year I've purchased a few vintage lenses which you've seen on this channel. They're not as much of an investment as the gimbal was by any means at all. However, it was money spent on lenses that I didn't actually need, but those vintage lenses brought me joy and entertainment for going out and getting to use vintage lenses, and it's a world that I've actually been keen to explore more into and intend on doing over the next couple of years, exploring more into vintage lenses. So buying the cheaper vintage lenses gets me in my foot into the door of the vintage world and sort of test the water, see how I like it. I'm enjoying it, so I will probably be purchasing more. That is an investment into myself because I enjoy shooting with vintage lenses. So the rule. I call this the 3-2-1 rule, and it goes like this. For me to justify investing in a piece of camera gear or equipment, I need to have 3 instances over a 2-month period where I could have used that equipment or camera gear to upgrade my production quality, make my workflow easier, or improve the final product that I'm delivering. And at that point, I will invest in 1. 3-2-1. So I've been using this rule for the past few years, and I genuinely believe it has saved me from spending hundreds on products I just didn't need. Pieces of kit that I thought I would need, thought I would use, and in the long run, I probably didn't need it. I probably just wanted it because there was a bit of hype around that item at the time. And by implementing this 3-2-1 rule, it shows me that I don't actually need that piece of equipment. If I didn't need it in a 2-month period for at least 3 instances, I probably didn't need it at all. And that 2-month period can be completely dependent on you. I've just chosen to do 2 months myself because I'm not a full-time photographer, full-time filmmaker. It's just, that's a good amount of time because I get a few jobs here and there. So that gives me a good amount of time to know, okay, would I have actually needed that? Would it be something that's worth investing in? This rule has not worked every time. There are a couple purchases that I'm like, okay, I probably didn't need that. If I'm being completely honest, the Pro Mist filter, which I'm using right now, however, it's a purchase that... I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to get... Oh! No. You good? Didn't realise my tripod was so precariously placed. Yeah, the Pro Mist filter. I thought I would use it a hell of a lot more than I have used it. I actively try and make an effort of using it because it's not something that I use as much as I thought I would. And when I've actually used it on client and professional work, I've actually not really enjoyed the look of it, so I've chosen not to. So this is something that I thought I would use a lot more. I thought I was implementing the 3-2-1 rule in it because there was 3 instances in quite a quick succession where I was like, oh, Pro Mist filter would look really good here. And then I've got it and I've not really used it. So it doesn't work every time, but it helps the majority of the time, in my opinion. Quick note, if you're enjoying or finding this video in any way helpful or useful, please drop a thumbs up down below. It massively helps me out, and consider subscribing while you're down there. So that's my number 1 rule for how to not waste money on camera gear you don't need and how to decide whether or not you need camera kit. So now let's talk about how to buy it. I've said in the previous video that my aim when I purchase camera kit is to get the highest value for the best price. Not the lowest price, the best price. What I mean by not the lowest price, the best price is because often if you go for the cheapest stuff on the end of the scale, it's going to be shit. And then you can pay loads and loads of money to get really high quality stuff, but often there are usually items and options on the market which overlap. So you can get mid of the range equipment, which is often almost as good as the high range stuff for a fraction of the price. For example, my Tamron 70 to 180mm. That is £1,000 cheaper than the Sony equivalent, and after watching reviews and comparisons and doing my research into it, the difference between the two lenses is quite minimal. As I talked about this in my previous video about this lens, so I'll link that up above here. But that's something I look at. I want the best value for the best price. So to find the product that I'm going to purchase, to figure out what it is that I need, first evaluate what I'm using it for. What am I looking for? What am I missing in my workflow? Using the Tamron 70 to 180mm as an example, am I missing a telephoto from my lineup? Okay, what focal range am I looking at getting? What focal range do I want? I knew I wanted a 70 to 200, that sort of focal range. So then began the research. I started looking into the options that are available to me on the market, got an idea for what is out there, and then set my budget. The reason I set my budget second is because I didn't actually know what the options that are on the market are worth or how much I'd be looking at spending. I didn't want to say, hey, I want to spend £500, but it's a £1,000 lens. That's now out of my budget. I wanted to see what was out there first before deciding my budget. Once I found my budget, I then narrowed it down to a select few options, competitors, whatever you want to call them, that were potential items that I would purchase. So that came down to me for the Tamron 70 to 180mm, the Sony 70 to 200mm, and also I was looking at the Sigma 70 to 200mm as well. Once I narrowed it down to these three options, I then began my research, began looking into the lenses individually, the pros and cons, what they offer over each other, the different prices, etc, etc. Massive help for this sort of research is YouTube, looking at reviews, looking at real world testing, looking at people like Frono's Photo is a really big one for me, testing out these different lenses side by side, seeing the difference, seeing if it's which one's better than which, and if paying more for, like, I could have gone for the Sony 70 to 200mm f2.8, which is £1,000 more, is it worth the price difference? A really good tip here that I think applies to everything in life when you've ever got any choices to make is to not give yourself too many options. I can't remember where I first heard this principle from, but I heard about it somewhere. But basically the idea of it is, if you have too many options, it makes it a lot harder to make the choice, because you'll never be certain on the choice you're making. If you have 2 or 3 options to pick between, when you pick one, you're subconsciously going to be very certain that you are making the right decision here. If you expand that out to 10 options, you're gonna have that underlying doubt of, did I make the right choice? There are so many options available to you. Did you make the right choice? Whereas if you've got a smaller number of options, it's a lot easier to be very certain and sure in your decision making. So I think that applies to everything in life, but we're using it obviously for buying camera lenses right now. So once you've decided on the product you're going to go for, now comes the big thing. Now comes the time to purchase it. And I want to quickly talk about how I find the best price online. Plain and simply, I will spend some time searching around the internet looking for the best price for this item. Often, especially with camera kit, you'll find random websites that offer it a lot cheaper, but it takes 2, 3, 4 weeks to deliver it, and it's usually getting shipped from other parts of the world, such as China is the big one, but usually gets shipped from there. And quite often these websites will look not the most secure. For sites like this, I highly recommend checking Trustpilot. I've purchased from a couple of these websites, in fact a couple, I can't remember what the website I purchased the Tamron from, the Tamron 70 to 180 from was, but I checked Trustpilot before it because it looked like a good website, but I just never heard of it before and I was a bit skeptical. Checked Trustpilot and there were a few bad reviews on there, but I think everything's got a few bad reviews. The overwhelming result was that it was a trustworthy website. So I went through that website to purchase the Tamron, had no issues at all, and yeah, we're all good and we're laughing. My big point here is just be smart and be safe. Just check Trustpilot, trust the website before you give them your money. Just, yeah, be smart, be safe. Personally, I really like this website called eInfinity. This is not a sponsored site. This is just a site that I've purchased stuff from in the past. I've actually purchased the Sony a7 III, the Tamron 17 to 28mm, the Sony 28 to 70mm, the Sony 85mm. I think that's it. I think that's all the kit that I've purchased through that website. I've never had a problem with them. They are got really good reviews online. When I first used them, it was a site I'd never even heard of, but I got recommended them by a friend. And since then, actually, I found out quite a lot of photographers actually do use this site. So if you don't already know about it, definitely recommend checking it out. 9 times out of 10, I go on there. It is cheaper than Amazon. It's cheaper than the other websites online. And now, because I trust it, even if it's a bit more expensive than like some of these other dodgy websites, I would generally go through eInfinity. The reason I actually didn't for my Tamron is because it was more expensive than even Amazon was at the time of purchasing. So didn't go with them for that one. eInfinity do ship from Hong Kong, so it's like a 2-week delivery. In all honesty, every time I've ordered from them, it's been delivered within the week, but it does say on there that the ETA is 2 weeks, so I suppose I'm just being lucky, I guess. And if you also want to purchase secondhand, I would advise MBP, also not sponsored. MBP or MPB? MPB? Yeah, MPB. Also not sponsored, but I know, I've never used them myself, but I know a lot of people that have used them and use them quite consistently and have always had great results with them. So there we are. That's my number one rule for not spending too much money on camera gear, or not wasting money on camera gear you don't need. That's how I find camera gear and how I do my research into what camera gear I'm going to purchase next, and how I find the best price online. I really hope that helped you out. If you did find it helpful in any way, shape or form, please drop a thumbs up down below. It massively helps me out. Subscribe if you aren't already. Join the community. We're growing and it's great. That was that was a really cringy great. That is great. Yeah. Anyway, drop a thumbs up, subscribe, all the other stuff that YouTube's telling you to do, and I will see you in the next video. Do not forget to take the shot. That is everything, isn't it? I feel like I was forgetting something there. Go follow me on Instagram at Luke Palms. There we go, self-plug. That's all. Peace.